that you can use to structure your market research. And of course, we can have a Q&A at the end where you can submit all your questions you may have. Okay. So, Statista. For those who may not know about Statista yet, um, Statista is a German company. Our headquarters are in Hamburg, Germany, and it is an online platform, an online data platform. Okay, what kind of data do you find on the platform on Statista? It is data mainly about market trends, about consumers, about companies, and so on. So data that supports you when you need to develop a structured market research. Since we're talking about data, it's essential for you to understand where the data come from. And that's why I wanted to show you this graphic because it shows really clearly that Statista operates both as data producer and data collector. So on the one hand, you see this blue side, almost 50% of the data that you find on Statista is data produced internally by us. So it means that we have an internal team of analysts that produce in-house analysis. Gonna show that to you later, of course. The other half of the data is collected data. And a small part of that is accessible sources, such as, for example, World Bank, International Monetary Fund, and so on. Or in terms of collecting data, it's data that come from data partnerships that we have with other market research institutes, such as Nielsen, JFK, and so on. So what does that mean? That by having this data partnership, we have the right to publish part of the data that they produce. Okay, and this is the basis of the platform. So practically where the data come from. What I would do now, I would just jump right into the platform. And this is the homepage of Statista. First of all, since we're talking about a data platform, the first question is, okay, how do I look for data on the platform? And to do that, there are three ways. So one way is to use these drop-down menus. So according to the different type of analysis that I want to carry out, I refer to a different section of the platform. Second option is this search bar. Search bar, which is very similar to Google, where you use keywords in order to find the data you're interested in. The third option, and that's where I would like to start from, is our Research AI tool. It's a tool that you may have already heard of because it was published last year. However, there have been quite a few updates tools, so I think it's good to start from here. Research AI is an AI tool. Okay, I imagine you may have all used tools such as ChatGPT, Perplexity, Gemini, Copilot, and so on. So it works exactly in the same way, but of course there are a few main differences. When we click on Research AI, here we find the box, the question box, where we can submit our research query, and it can be whatever. So we can ask for market trends, we can compare countries, we can ask for data related to companies, and so on. Let's do an example. So how are digital payments in Saudi Arabia developing? What the system does, the system generates an answer based, of course, on the question that you submit. Okay, here, for example, we see Saudi Arabia's digital payment sector is rapidly growing with consumers shifting from cash to mobile wallets, contactless cards, and emerging methods. Okay, supported by government initiatives aiming for 70% electronic payments by 2025. Okay, and then you find the whole answer. You can see here these numbers. These numbers are the data at the basis of the response which was generated for you. These data, so the sources for the response, you can find also on the right side here. And of course, you can also click on them to have then a deep dive and understand better where the data comes from and who published the data. Then you find the original source. If it's a survey, you published it. Also the link to the source, the release date, etc. Okay. But what's the most important thing for you to understand when you use Research AI? Um, for you to understand better, at the basis of Research AI, we use the model of Claude Sonnet 3.5. But what the biggest, let's say, difference with the generic AI tools such as ChatGPT, Perplexity, and so on is that all the data at the basis of the responses are data that are published within our platform. So we're talking about all verified data. Research AI does not extract any data from Google. Okay. As I completely understand, especially or you need to work on a project or on a thesis and so on. Then, of course, if you use a generic AI tools can support you, but we all know about the risks of AI tools, such as, for example, hallucination or unverified data at the basis. When you use Research AI, the data at the basis of the responses that are generated for you are all manually verified data by our researchers and analysts. Okay. And this is an example on how you can use Research AI. Then, of course, you can also ask for follow-up questions because you want to compare Saudi Arabia with another country, or also the system suggests you other ways you can use this tool, such as, for example, key facts in bullet points or a summary, and so on. Okay. How I would use Research AI in a general level. Research AI is a very good tool when you want to start your research because you can ask a specific question, you get a specific answer, and it helps you structure your research. However, it's also important to understand that Research AI does not um, substitute completely the whole platform. Okay. And also the level of detail that you can reach with the platform can be way higher. I'm going to show that to you in a second so that you can understand. But Research AI as a beginning for your research is a perfect beginning. Okay. So let's say that we want to analyze a market. In this case, we mentioned, for example, the digital payments. So let's say that we want to structure research on the digital payments market. What I usually do, apart from Research AI, I always start from the Market Insights menu. So the Insights menu, and then I go to the Market Insights. Oops, sorry. Okay. Market Insights is an area together with the Consumer Insights and the Commerce Insights, which we're going to have a look at later. These free tools are all tools that are developed entirely by our analysts. Okay. Specifically, Market Insights are sector analysis. And if we click on Explore Market Insights, you find the different topics, so the different sectors. We go from advertising and media, consumer includes, of course, all consumer goods, e-commerce includes all consumer goods, but online. Finance includes, for example, banking sector or real estate or insurances, for example. Global indicators that are country analysis through socioeconomic indicators. Then we find health, industrial, mobility, and technology. Okay. Let's say, for example, that we want to analyze the digital payments sector, as we mentioned before, then we would go to the finance sector. Okay. And here you find an overview of the macro segment that are analyzed by our analysts. What I always do when I'm on this overview page, I always click on this directory button that you find here on the right. Why would you do that? It's because if you click on directory, then you are able to see very clearly the structure of segments and subsegments taken into account to develop this analysis. Okay. In this case, for example, we were mentioning digital payments. We find below payments, we find, sorry, the segment dedicated to digital payments. And since market insights is a dynamic area, um, you can choose yourself the focus you want to apply. So you can either carry out an analysis on payments in general, or digital payments, or more specific on mobile POS payments, and so on. According to the focus you apply, then the page will re-aggregate the data for you. Okay? In this case, let's do an example on digital payments. And here you find that the structure of market insights is always the same in terms of here you also always find the highlights of the analysis, the definition of this market, in scope and out of scope, so what's included and what's excluded from this analysis. Market structure refers to the structure of segments and subsegments which we were looking at before. Reports is a different type of content we are going to have a look at later. And the methodology. Since sorry, since our analysts developed this analysis, you also have access to how they actually, what kind of approach they use to develop this analysis. So we selected the segment of digital payments, and for now we have a worldwide, so a global focus, which we can change, of course. We can either select a specific country or a continent or a political region. Okay. Say, for example, that we want to focus on Saudi Arabia. The system re-aggregates the data. And if you want, you can also compare different countries or regions. So you can add to the system maximum 5 countries. And then we find the analysis. So, of course, depending on the sector you want to analyze, you will find different KPIs that define that market, that sector. In this case, we're talking about digital payments, and the first KPI we find is the transaction value. Okay. As you can see, this is a forecast analysis. You can find the forecast data until 2030. So our analysts try to understand how this market is going to develop in the upcoming years. And at the same time, you find the consolidated data. So how the market developed in the last few years. So that's what I was telling you about in the beginning. Why do I start with market insights when I want to analyze a specific sector? It's because it provides you with the most important KPIs that define that market and allow you to understand its development. Okay. In this case, we find, for example, the development of transaction value from 2018 until 2030. And of course, we can see in this case that this market is rapidly and growing very strongly. Or, for example, we find the average transaction value per user, or more information about the users. So users by market, or, for example, the penetration rate per segment, of course. You also find an opinion written by our analysts, description of the methodology, and at the very basis of the page, the very bottom, you find the so-called key market indicators, which are the data at very basis of the analysis. So the data where our analyst started from to develop this forecast analysis. Okay. Let's say that you want to use this data for a project, for a thesis, or for a presentation, either you download the single graphic as a PNG format with this arrow button on the side of the graphic, or that's also what I would suggest you to do. With this download button on the right side, you can download the whole analysis as an Excel or CSV, and this allows you to work way better with this with the analysis and with the numbers. Also, as a currency, it is set automatically on US dollars, but you can change it if you want to, and according to the currency that you need, and the system is going to re-aggregate the data according to the currency that you need. And you also find the citation button. In case you want to reuse this data, Statista also shows you, according to the different citation methods, how to properly do a citation in the most complete way. Okay, perfect. And these are how market insights works. Okay, so what we did so far, okay, we took the digital payment sector and we analyzed the sector. What we usually do after analyzing a specific sector, we also analyze consumers or consumers' attitudes. We have a dedicated tool for that, which is the so-called Consumer Insights tool. Okay, Consumer Insights is a tool developed by our analysts, and it's based on surveys. Surveys that are submit in 56 different countries to consumers that go from 18 to 64 years old. Okay, how does it work? Here we are within the Consumer Insights tool. We can click on Enter the Consumer Insights tool. Okay, and here we are within the survey. First of all, we need to select a country. I'm also happy to announce that from 2025, we added Saudi Arabia, which before was not available. I think we updated this just a few weeks ago, so I'm very happy to let you know, just to make it a bit easier. Okay. On the left side, after selecting the country, you find the macro categories of questions that were submitted to the consumers. So you can start from a very basic demographics questions such as the age or their living situation or their hobbies or their education, employment, to categories per sector. Consumer electronics, fashion, finance, insurance, online shopping, retail shopping, and so on. Okay. Since we're talking about digital payments today, maybe let's do a related example. We go to the finance area, and you find that subcategories of questions are open, and we can go to payment, for example, and online payments by type, for example. We click on the plus, and we add the question to the system. Okay, and here you can find, sorry, I'm losing my voice today, in percentage, what the responses of the consumers are. The question was, how have you paid for online shopping in the past 12 months? The question was a multi-pick question. It means that the respondent could select more than one possible answer. Okay, and here we can see that 48% of the consumers in Saudi Arabia stated that they use a credit card to carry out online shopping payments. Or, for example, 20% with advance payment, or 7% by invoice. This is, of course, a very static way to look at the data. I think that the coolest functionality of this tool is that you can mix different questions in order to understand better how consumers behave according to variables that you yourself can add. Let me explain this to you by just doing it. In this case, we have a question on online payments. Let's say that we want to understand better how respondents respond differently to the same question according to their age, for example. So we go to characteristics and demographics, and you find here many questions related to age. And we can add, for example, a question related to generation. So we click on the plus, okay? And here on the top, you see columns and rows. What we are going to do, we are going to create, literally create a cross data table by putting the question related to age in the columns. And here we can see, depending on the different generation the respondent belongs to, we can see how the responses vary. Okay. In this case, we can see, for example, Gen Z and millennials or Generation X um, do not tend to pay by invoice, whereas it's a thing, it's a preferred payment method by baby boomers, for example. Or, for example, in comparison to other generations, it looks like millennials, but first of all, Gen Z tend to use more credit cards. Of course, I also don't want to take any conclusions that would be too simplistic by only looking at the question and the answer. But just to show you what you can do, you can really play a lot around with this tool because you can add different variables to the system so that you understand better how respondents behave, consumers behave. Okay. Also, especially if you want to, for example, develop a new product or you want to understand better what kind of a target group is preferred for your product or for your service, for example, then these can be, of course, of great help in order to define the characteristics of your preferred target group. And these are consumer insights. Different from consumer insights, this is a different approach, let's say, a different type of analysis, are the so-called e-commerce insights. As the tool says, as the name says, of course, this is based on, here we go, it's based, all data is related to the e-commerce world and e-commerce stores.
I think you can minimize that small screen, Luca.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
I
and
just
also everyone, if you have questions, please feel free to shoot any questions you may have. This is the advantage of having attend the live session because you can actually ask the speaker live.
yeah, definitely. If there is something which is not clear until now, please feel free to ask also in the chat, and maybe Filoteo, if you can then read it out, I'm happy
Yeah, we have
to.
actually one. So any
Okay.
stratification to regional level by Abdul Mohsen.
Statista tends to have doesn't tend to have let's say a focus on regions within a country, tends more to have a global focus. So how Statista usually works, we try to have a global focus to cover as many countries as possible and as many topics as possible. So that's why global coverage in that sense. But of course, then we are not able to go deeper on a regional level within a country. Sometimes you can find data like single statistics, for example, on a topic, and in that case, I would suggest you to use Research AI for that, because it allows you to find more specific data related to that. Otherwise, when you navigate these tools such as marketing insights, consumer insights, and e-commerce insights, these are all based on a national level. Okay. This is the focus that Statista tends to have. Doesn't mean that we do not have any data on a regional level, but in that case, it's a bit harder to find, and I would suggest you to use Research AI. Okay, perfect. Are there any other questions so far?
I think we can proceed.
Perfect. Okay, so e-commerce database. What I did now, actually, just to clarify every step, I went through this drop-down menu, e-commerce insights, and you should be able to access e-commerce insights also from this link. However, since Filoteo was mentioning that this is not the case, I will get back to you. But you also find the link on your library page that takes you directly to e-commerce database for now. Then we will get back to you once I get clarification on this. So with e-commerce database, there are many ways that you can use this tool. You can navigate this tool. The way I mostly use the tool is by using rankings. Okay. And here you find the retailer ranking, store ranking, company ranking, product category ranking, or country ranking. So just take into account as all the data that you find within this tool is the data related to e-commerce. Okay. And when you have a look at these rankings, let's say, for example, we click on store ranking, you find rankings of all stores that we included in the e-commerce database that you can filter per country or region and per product category. Okay. For example, let's say that we want to have a look at the electronics sector. And specifically, we want to analyze consumer electronics stores. We click on select. And here we find we didn't apply so far any country filters. But in this case, you find a ranking in terms of revenues that store developed. And since we're talking about online stores, you need to take into account that there are different domains. Okay, so Amazon.com is going to be different from Amazon.co.jp and .co.uk or .de and so on. Okay, so here we are analyzing the domain, the store with a specific domain. If you're not interested in a specific store, for a country, of course, in that case, then you can refer to retailer ranking, because retailer ranking includes all the different entities with the different domains. Okay, so for example, Amazon would include Amazon.com or .co.uk and so on. Okay. In this case, just to do as an example, just also to make you understand how this works. Let's take, for example, Amazon.com, an easy one. Okay. And here you find, first of all, of course, the development of the revenues for Amazon.com. Then you find, for example, okay, in this case, monthly revenue, or I'm gonna scroll a bit down, cross-border sales. So the different sales in different countries. So how much that country counts when it comes to sales for this online store. or category split. So what kind of um, products are sold within the store. So we can see, for example, 38% is electronics, or 8% is fashion. Then if you click, you also find a further split, and so on. Okay. You also find the data in this case related to customer demographics, so per year, or you find by customer data related to income groups. So if it's a low, middle, or high income perceived by the customer who purchase on Amazon.com in this case. You also find transaction KPIs, so number of orders carried out on Amazon.com, purchase frequency, so how often, so how many times per year do customers buy on Amazon.com in this case? What's the conversion rate? What's the in this case, you also find apart conversion rate. You also find cart abandonment rate or add to cart rate. So as you can see, it reminds the structure of the market insights we were looking at before. Instead of analyzing a sector, in this case, we are analyzing an online store. Okay, and these analysis provide you with the most important KPIs that allow you to understand how um, this store is doing. Okay, in terms of revenue development, who are the customers, what's the conversion rate, and so on. Also, in this case, we also have data on traffic. In this case, they are provided by a data partner, which is a similar web, in terms of number of visits, for example. Also, what kind of payment methods are accepted. Okay, also data related to the shipping providers. And also then, okay, e-commerce revenue in general, and then top stores in the US electronics market, but this is, of course, more general. Okay.
Yeah, that's a lot of useful data. So we have a question, Luca. How
Yep,
up to date
this.
is this database? Or how
So,
frequent do you update?
so the question is, it depends on the data you're looking at. When it comes to, so as I was saying at the very beginning, um, it depends. So it depends if it's collected data or in-house produced data. If it's collected data, so for example, data that we collect from data partners or from International Monetary Fund, then we are dependent, of course, on the publication date of the partners, okay, or the original source. So depending on when they publish the latest version of the data, then we can upload and update the data on the platform as well. When it comes to our data, instead, when it comes, for example, to market insights, we also have a calendar within the market insights. If we scroll down, you find here release calendar. If we click on see all upcoming releases, you will be able to see all the upcoming releases in terms of, okay, new analysis which is going to be published, or a new segment which is going to be added, or just an update of the analysis. Anyway, as a general, let's say, rule of thumb, when it comes to the market insights, you're gonna be able to see an update at least once per semester. Okay. So every 6 months. And here you also find the updates within the market insights area. You'll be able to see the consumer insights data updates as well. With the e-commerce insights, that also depends. For example, if we're talking about public companies such as Amazon, then when it comes to the revenues of that company, then of course we need to wait that the year closes. Um, and also, this kind of public companies must publish their financial data. Okay, so when that happens, then we will be able to update the data on the platform accordingly. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So can we also show them how to extract this data, such as the graphs?
Yeah. You mean in the e-commerce database or
Yes,
in general?
in general. Yeah.
Okay, so it depends on the area where you are. So, for example, every page where you find yourself into, there is always a download button. Okay, in this case, for example, we are looking at the Amazon.com store, and here you find the download button here on the top right. Okay, and then you will be able to download all the data as an Excel file. If we go back to the store ranking we were looking at before, you can also download the ranking. So in this case, you're not going to be able to download all data related to a specific data to all stores. But in this case, you're going to download the ranking. Okay. Um, when we were, for example, in the market insights, I'm just going to open a random example. Let's say advertising. You also find here a download button that allows you to download the all analysis either as an Excel or a CSV. Or if you want this colorful graphic, then you find the download button on the side and download that as a PNG. With the consumer insights, very similar. Let's take an example. Here you find, again, a CSV export or a PowerPoint export. Okay. So everywhere you are, there is always going to be a download button, let's say. Okay, perfect. Okay, so um, as I said, e-commerce database, there are many ways you can use this tool. Uh, this is, I would say, the most used one, and also the way I usually use it, going through rankings or then filtering per product category or per country. Of course, you can also, if we go back to the dashboard, you can also find the search bar here where you can just look for use keywords and find the related company or the related store and so on. Or you can also analyze countries. Here you also find country rankings um, in terms of course, e-commerce revenue, and then you can find e-commerce data related to the development of the e-commerce market in these countries. Okay. However, what I think is most beneficial in this tool is the data related to stores, okay, or retailers, which include all of them. Okay. Then, okay, I would say let's go back to Statista. So far we use the Research AI tool, so our AI tool, which is perfect for the beginning of your research, and also when you want to have more detailed data that you may not find on the platform. Then we had a look at the market insights, how to analyze sectors, how to analyze consumers, how to analyze online stores. There is another type of content that I would like to show you, which are the so-called reports. Um, let's use keywords, okay, like e-commerce. This is, let's say, the classic way of using Statista. So a bit like on Google, you use a keyword and this is the results page. On the right side, you find the different filters that you can apply to find the data of interest. So you can filter per, for example, the publication date, per industry, per location, again, as we did before. but here you find the different content types. As you can see, you find, for example, consumer insights, e-commerce insights, marketing insights. So what we were looking at before. The difference is just the way you find the data. So either you use a keyword and then you filter by content types, or you go to the different drop-down menus and then you develop an analysis within the tool. It's a bit up to you to choose the way that works best for you. Um, what I honestly would suggest when you want to use these tools is to go to the dedicated menus because in that way the structure of the analysis is way clearer. But when you want, for example, to look for generic data, then you can, for example, okay, use a keyword, or when you don't know exactly what you're looking for, then I would suggest, okay, you can use a keyword and then have a look through the results page. Here there is only a difference between two different content types that I wanted to show you. And this is the difference between statistics and reports. Statistics are single data, okay, and they only have a quantitative approach. So if we open one, okay, in this case, it's data published by Statista, but you find the single graphic, the source on the right side, the link to the source, the release date, the different download formats. So if you want to download this statistic, you can do it as a PDF, Excel, PNG, and PowerPoint. And again, if you need to quote to do a citation, where you see these two inverted commas on the right side, Statista shows you what the most complete way is to do so. Okay. So this is a statistic. Oh, sorry. This is a statistic, and statistics only have a quantitative approach. Instead, we also have reports, and that's what I actually want to show you. The so-called reports tend to have instead a qualitative approach. If we download this, for example, okay, you can see from the very beginning that um, these are proper studies. So here we don't only find numbers, but our analysts write a proper analysis related to the development of this market according to the focus, of course, of the report itself. But here, in comparison to all the data that we had a look at until now, here there are not only numbers, but there is a qualitative written analysis by our analysts. And also, this is also what I was mentioning at the beginning. When you use Research AI, for example, Research AI is a very good tool to start your research that helps you structure your research. But the kind of level of detail that you reach with reports is not something that Research AI can do yet, at least now. Um, that's why I was saying you still need to understand how to structure market research throughout the platform with different tools of the platform, because the level of detail that you can reach can be way higher. And like in this case with reports. So when you really want to go deep into a specific topic, then I would suggest you should also download this kind of content. Okay. Okay. I went through the most important tools of the platform. I would say since we have around 10 minutes, maybe let's give some time for questions.
Yeah,
And
Luca, I can see it's almost $1,000 report. So, and this is free
yeah,
for our institutional account for our students. It's a very, very, valuable resource that is made available. And yeah, if you have any questions, please ask it now. So while we have our speaker to answer it. instantly. Any questions? I mean, you can just unmute if you can. There's
Yeah,
no
of
need to
course.
type. Yeah. All right. E-commerce. I may have a question
Okay,
on
perfect.
behalf of the students, maybe.
Yeah, sure. Feel free.
So, for the raw data, this was also asked last year.
Uh-huh.
Students, they always like are curious to ask if they can get it and how. How is the
Mm-hmm.
process if they can actually use the raw data?
So, it depends. So when it comes to collected data from other sources, in that case, cannot provide with the raw data because the way we receive the data is already, okay, let's say packed statistics. But when it comes to our data, so our analysis, for example, what we were looking at before with the market insights, let me share my screen again.
Sorry.
And oh, sorry. Okay, let's just a second. Okay, okay. So what I was mentioning before when we were in the market insights area, let's open again a random example. Within the market insights, okay, I was mentioning that these are forecast analysis, so sector analysis. At the very bottom of the analysis, you always find the so-called key market indicators. And those are the data at the basis of the analysis. So where our analysts started from. Okay. Then, of course, our analysts mm, let's say, apply the different models or different approaches, which are also described, of course, in the methodology. But these are the data that you can also download. So if you want to start from the very basis, like our analysts did, then you can also download. Here you find this arrow, this download button, and you're, of course, free to download them. When it comes, for example, to the consumer insights, it's a bit trickier because in this case we are talking about questions and answers. Um, in this case, what you can do, okay, you can download the data with the absolute numbers or estimated population represented or in percentage. Um, when it comes to raw data, I would say what the market insights offer is a bit easier to work with.
Right. So, okay. So there are questions related to access. I can just demonstrate it
Sure,
for a few
sure.
seconds. Okay. So yeah, we always forget how to access it, but a lot of students like do mistakes on how to access. They go straight to the statista.com website, but it's always the practice, standard practice of libraries that whatever databases they have, it should be accessed through the library website. And here at MBSC, if you want to access Statista or any other databases, you have to make sure that you go first through the library website. And our library website is library.mbsc.edu.sa, right? Right. So, and then you can click login here at the top right and click continue. And the usual signing in of your MBSC account, uh, you just click the first option if you have an active student of account of MBSC. So the second option, you will only click this one if you are already an alumni. So, but first, we will select the first option and enter your email and then there is a second factor authentication, and then you should be able to connect even if you are off campus, just like I am today, right? So the databases are accessible in here. There is a databases menu here, or you can go to the home page and scroll a little bit down, and there is a databases and online journals in here. So this is, I think, the quickest way. Just click on databases, and then you can access. You can just click any of the databases displayed in here. There is an eCommerce. There is also Statista. If I click Statista, the Statista homepage will appear. There you go. So now I have access to Statista. It's easy. So I have a question from Saad. Is the data more accurate in different countries or regions than others? And how accurate is it for Saudi since it is new?
Okay, thank you very much. Also for showing the access to the platform. That was very helpful. So when it comes to the accuracy, so Saudi Arabia is not really like a new country that we are analyzing now. In general, when it comes to data related to Saudi Arabia, we already had data on the platform. Specifically when it comes to the consumer insights, so the surveys, so the analysis of the consumers, then we added Saudi Arabia this year. So the first update we had a few weeks ago. But first of all, the methodology is always the same that we apply. And actually, it is more of a, what I would say, it is more of we should also actually, first of all, ask ourselves how much data do we have available to analyze a specific sector? That's the question that our analysts ask themselves to start the analysis. So if it's, for example, instead of the accuracy for each country. So if it's a sector that it is already, let's say, consolidated, such as, for example, let's say fashion sector. Okay, so it's a sector where we have already, of course, a lot of data on, and where a lot of data is already available. In that case, then they start from data from on a country level, okay, and then they let's say in a very bad way, put the data all together, then to have an estimation on a global level. Different is if we're talking about new markets such as AI. It's not that new anymore, but still, let's say a new market such as AI. In that case, then what our analysts try to do, they start from a global level, for example, such as global investments in this sector. And then they use different models as like regression analysis to then break it down with the different countries. Okay, that's usually the way our analysts proceed. Okay, so more than the country itself, it's let's say the kind of sector we are analyzing. Then I hope I could answer your question enough. Then of course I'm not an analyst myself, but if you have any specific questions, of course you're always free to reach out to me, and then I will forward your questions to the dedicated team.
Sorry, I'm muted. So can we
No
share
worries.
your email, Luca, to our
Yeah,
students if
sure.
have questions?
Yeah, I'm just gonna type it into in the chat.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right. So, do we have any more questions? I think we are managing our time very well. We have
Yes.
1 minute left. Right. Any more questions? So we've already given our contacts. So I think if they have further questions, they will reach out. And of course, we are always happy to answer them. So with this, just to conclude, we'd like to thank you, Luca, for the insightful session today. And
Thank you very
thank you,
much.
everyone, for joining us tonight. So we appreciate all your attendance and your participation. And we look forward to seeing you in the next library training session. Thank you so much again,
Definitely.
everyone. Take care, everyone.
Thank you very
Thank you,
much for your
Luca.
participation.
Thank you.
Have a nice
Thank you.
evening.
Thank you. Have a nice evening too.
Bye bye.
Bye.